I'm going to record myself so I can give my own judging criteria and feedback later on. And it helps me see where I'm standing. No, I was meditating this morning, and I was wondering, these are probably busy professionals. They're, networking and always doing a lot of stuff. I wonder if it would be beneficial if we just sat there in silence for 10 minutes. But I decided not to. But I did want to talk about something that's kind of equivalent to silence and just being with yourself. And it's called the space between. And I've done blog posts about this, and I kind of think about this a lot. And I've talked with a couple of different people about the space between. And so I've taught drums. Well, I guess I've played drums for over a decade, and I was in the Ohio State marching band. And I've taught professional organizations, competition, marching band, and things like that. And it's not necessarily, who plays an instrument here? Anybody? Okay. All right. Probably maybe an instrument that has note value, like up and down the scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, all that stuff. I played percussion, so we didn't have any of that foo-foo nonsense. It was strictly rhythms. And the space between the rhythms. So it's, when you start out playing percussion or any instrument for that matter, there's always the thing that my band director said, which my mom is a band director now, but where's the fire? Like, why are you rushing, right? Everybody has this idea that they want to push and go quickly and kind of get things done. And I think as I developed as a musician and as I started to educate more, it made a lot more sense to me, like what people meant when they said, where's the fire? Why are you rushing so much? And it was really to encounter the space between the notes. So if you ever listen to a drumline performance, I don't know if you guys are geeks like I am, but probably not. But these drumline performances, it's not necessarily the space or the notes that or the sound that comes out of the drums that's mystifying or hypnotizing. It's more so the space in between the notes. If you think about the black on the page, if you see a note, it's called, depending on what the stem does, it's called the note value. So the value of the note is actually determined by how much space it takes up between that note and the next note. And I think that's a really important concept when we are going about our daily lives and thinking about our business practices and everything. And we started to even get into it with the Facebook group, but we have what we do, and then we have the space between what we do and the next time we do it. So yes, it's important to take action. I think that's really important. But also, what kind of value is happening between the notes that is almost what makes your next entrance more impactful. I think that's really important. So it's not necessarily the Facebook group that's going to be the most important part. It's the community, like we were talking about, the community behind what makes that Facebook group valuable is what people, I think, are going to associate with the next time that they need something. So as far as financing or insurance or chiropractic or whatever, these services are available elsewhere, right? So why would they come to one person as opposed to the next person? It's the same action, it's the same black on the page, but the space between what you create for them, the value that you bring is I don't think it's as cut and dry as a lot of people might think. So sitting in meditation and kind of just doing nothing and figuring out almost what that is to you, what is that value that you're bringing when nobody else is there? Character is I remember in elementary and junior high, we talked a lot about character, and the principal was always big on that. We had Basketball Jones come in with the spinning basketballs on his finger, and we would talk about character. And he would say, character is what you do when nobody else is watching, right? It's kind of the same concept, only on the adult level. It's when you're doing your services and whatnot. It's what you are not doing maybe that might be even more important. The silence in a conversation sometimes is more important than the content. If we were just to be in the middle of a conversation and somebody mentions something and I just go, that's a little bit, that silence is more profound sometimes than what we speak. And I think those spaces are something that a lot of people are missing out on, and they're just kind of trying to make a lot of noise. Imagine your favorite song that you're listening to, but it doesn't have any timing. I was thinking of it in the shower. I don't know why, but I love rock and roll. Put another diamond jukebox. Yeah, that one only just smashed up, and it doesn't take up as much space. It has no value anymore, right? You don't get that certain feeling that you have in between the spaces, in between the note values. So that's kind of what I'm going for with my Humans in Process program, is to help people identify who they are when they're not doing their schoolwork or when they're not doing their job or whatever they want to go for outside of high school. And we kind of get into that rut, is like, oh, okay, well, what do you do for a living? Well, okay, this is what I do, but is that, who I am? Most of the time, I would hope we would say, no. we are much more than just the services that we offer. The notes, the black that you see on the page might be your description at the top of your name tag, but the space in between is I think what we want people to talk about at the funeral, right? If we want to talk about that eulogy kind of stuff. What kind of value are you providing that's outside of a title or outside of a product or a service? Who are you over the course of time that really brings that really makes people remember you? And it's not even the one event that you do or the one big thing. I was watching a Trump thing on Netflix yesterday. If you guys haven't seen that, it's like a series on Trump. The American Dream is what it's called. And I think this guy's a pretty interesting character, and a lot of people do, no matter what your political views are. Trump has done a lot of different things throughout his life. He basically renovated a couple different parts of Manhattan in his late 20s. Like, he had a 40-year tax abatement to renovate different parts of the city that were getting run down in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s. He did a bunch of stuff that was for the community, but not a lot of people see that unless you are studying him. And, all we see right now is the 4-year term where he is president, and that's kind of the black on the page right now. But what he's done in the past and going from project to project or accomplishment to failure, it doesn't matter what that is. It's who are you over the course of time, and your value. What is your note value between here and the next thing that you do? I think is really important. So when we're trying to identify who we want to be, the white space on the page, it's interesting to see that things don't come to a peak or a culmination. People will remember you for that stuff, but they'll most likely, and I don't know, I'm only 25. They'll most likely remember you for what happened in between those spaces, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Another thing was at Mastermind. Actually, we had a gentleman who was Mastermind is another event that I put on, free, mind you. Which goes back to it's not the black that I put on the page, the black event being Mastermind. It's the thought process that created that. Say, hey, I want people to come and experience value. I want a face-to-face interaction. I want us to talk about some things that we're maybe struggling with and maybe some things that we're not so proud of, and how do we overcome those things. That thought process is what put the black on the page. And people see that, but the next time they say, hey, I want to throw an event, or I want to get some sort of value from other people, I want to improve my life, right? Who are we going to go to? We're going to go to the people who brought us the value first and the thought process behind that. So not necessarily people that are asking for another event, but they're asking, hey, how can your thought process help me? I think that's the white stuff on the page that we don't see and we can't clearly identify. That's what makes us powerful. But anyway, back to the point, we had a gentleman in my group who was saying, I just have to work the next 5 years, and after those 5 years, I can kick back and enjoy my life and do whatever I've wanted for the rest of my life. And one of my friends who was there said, well, the next 5 years, that could be 100% of the rest of your life. So who knows? Like that span of time, that space could be anything. What are the black pieces that you're putting on the page, and what's kind of the space in between that you're filling up the space with? Because we could put all these notes on a piece of plastic or paper this big. I could write an entire movement on here, but if it's all one piece of black, it doesn't make any sense. The white space is what expands everything. And that was kind of a lot of music analogy and note analogy. If you've never seen a piece of music, I apologize. But yeah, I think that was my main point coming in, was to say, as we move forward, maybe think about, yes, the products and services that we're offering, but more so the connections that we're making and the value that you're bringing, the note value that you're having in between your experiences and your products and services. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for letting me come. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do not have a business card, unfortunately. I know.
Yeah, you need to do that.
I know. I'm still getting everything up and running. Yeah.
I think it's awesome, this program you're doing for 16 to 20.
Yeah.
But as an adult and a mother and a Christian who meets with other mothers during the month, we find something in common, is that a lot of us have kids between 20 and 30. And I know it'd be a little bit intimidating since you're only 25, but you have definitely got your act together and some really nice thought processes.
Thanks.
I think there's a lot of kids between 20 and 30, even if they've gone to college and they have their degree and they know what they want to do, who can't find what they want to do, or they haven't fine-tuned it to know what field, or how they're going to use that education.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people between 20 and 30 that could probably use the same advice that you're giving to those 16 to 20-year-olds.
I absolutely agree, and that's kind of where...
Like helping them decide what it is that they want.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I came from. I went to Ohio State and was there for 5 years. The extra year was just based on indecision. I mean, I changed my major 3 times. After I graduated in 2015 till now, I've had over a dozen occupations. I've had my Series 6 license for financial services, life insurance license, real estate investing, tons of, restaurant management. Anything that you can think of, I've probably dabbled into, and it was not and what I found, which goes back to what we were just talking about, is it's not the occupation that I was doing because I could be good at anything that I wanted, and that's what I think a lot of people find, is it's not what they do, it's how they approach those situations that's valuable. So it comes back to, what do I want, and how do I want to pursue the black note? What is that? So I think that would be something interesting that I would be interested in looking into, is to kind of help those millennials, I guess. Is that what you call these guys?
You guys.
So is that what you're doing as your career then, is personal coaching for careers, or what is it that you're doing other than these helpful seminars?
Sure.
Like, how are you making your money?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. A lot of the times I've found out to make money, you have to be creative. At first it was like, okay, how am I going to get a 16-year-old to pay $500 to go through a course? Okay, yeah, let's get real. Let alone a 20-year-old, and let alone a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old. If they don't understand that, I'm gonna make all my progress with this black note. This note value is what's gonna carry me. It's really hard to draw that out of people, and I think as people who are a little bit older and might have kids, I think that's where the disconnect is too, is we see the white space and we see the importance of identifying like what qualities you have to make your impact, But to answer the question, where is the money coming from? I work with nonprofits and school systems who already have funding to try and help kids do that, to connect the classroom to the workforce. So there's already funding out there, and a group like this, we understand how important that is, because Rick and I were just talking before the meeting started, how you can see everything from the transparency of social media to all the options that we have through schools to whatever. Kids now can see everything, and they can see all the opportunities, and they get analysis paralysis, where there's so much to think about that they just wait and put it off because they have this fear of missing out, FOMO, right? Those are two big things, analysis paralysis and FOMO. But identifying what are the skills and what's your value that you can bring, that you can insert in any note. I don't really know the answer to the 20 to 30-year-old thing. I think that would be an interesting concept to put together, because a lot of it is group work, which is very important. Yes, you bring value alone in what you can do on your individual time, but if you can't present that to a group and you can't get it out there, you can't market it, I think that's really hard to bring up.
Well, say, because I wasn't being nosy, that's just a financial advisor asking, we gotta know.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure you're doing some of this stuff voluntarily or free of charge. It's like, well, you have to pay your bills too.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense, and I'll tell you what, for the age band you're in, you're really starting to make use of your white space, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Thanks.
Well, the more people you talk to like this, and these business owners, how many times have we looked at our employees, the people that we worked with, and we always in the back, well, we gotta make sure they have a fuller experience. It's not just the note he's talking about,
Mm-hmm.
If you're speaking to people like this, and then I go out and talk to 5 people, and everybody talks to 5 people, now he's talked to 135 people, and they talk to 3 people. It expands on an exponential.
Sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Right?
I've heard that.
You're talking my business.
Oh my gosh. I've heard that too many times.
But he's got a point. I was listening to what he was talking about, and my wife is constantly on me about, because I am I'll turn it black. That's it. It's what I do. I appraise. I appraise all day, every day, 7 days a week. That's what I do. He said that 5-year thing, and that's what threw me over the edge. I'm like, that sounds like me. Wow. Yeah, you have to be able to do that in getting that word out there, letting people, at least, especially as business people. I mean, if you have a lot, not any of us here have enough employees, but if you talk about somebody that ran Ropey Rubber, that wanted to have this guy come in and speak to his people about, not only are you mind your employer, but this is how you're going to have a much happier life. That means you're more happy with your job. It means you're going to stay longer. It means you do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
As employers, I think that's something that we somewhat should look at about. You can't just shove them into a coal mine.
Yeah.
Shove them into a coal
Well,
mine.
schools are a great place to start, because the younger you learn that, the more beneficial it's going to be the rest of your life.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, you only spend on average 40 hours a week at a workspace. What do you do with the other 128?
Right.
That's the white space. And I think if people had a choice, you say, do you want a job? Most people would say yes. And the answer is really no, I want money, or I want significance, or I want a place to grow. Right? Those are the things that we want to bring, and a lot of the times you can't quantify those or put a price on those things. So yeah, that's definitely something to drill into. What's the 20% of our lives that make 80% of the impact? And
Don't give up on this. I think you can make a huge impact.
Yeah,
on
that's
this
the goal.
community
Yeah.
And a larger community, especially if this catches fire, because it will not only apply to your people, the age group you're talking about, but in my head with these people here and people like us, how if you can start making this impact on me, and I can start looking and talking to other people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Don't give up on this. This is a good idea.
Well, and I would think, to build off of what you started talking about, that what a great age group you're reaching, because how many people in their 20s, 30s, even people in their 40s for so many years, it was, you have to go to college. Go to college and then you'll know what you want to be.
Oh yeah.
And so we have a couple decades of people who thought, go to college, and then they graduate or don't or leave school, and they don't know there was no magic formula to going to college. So help to teach them early on how to think about their life as a whole, and what's going, their job is not what's going to make them happy in life, it's the white space.
Yeah,
great
yeah.
to start early
Yeah.
and to help younger people learn how to think on their own and know that.
Do you find people
college
fear
is gonna fix that.
failure, I should say?
Oh yeah. Well, it's not necessarily failure; it's the judgment of others.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing in a world of social media where everything is transparent,
yeah.
and we have the highlight reels. If we for some reason when we meet somebody don't fulfill the highlight reel, we're afraid of what others are going to think of us.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
so
very
much again, guys.
Yeah. Nice day.